I grew up in the magnificent 80s. Back then we played with toys. Kids today, they don't play with toys because they's on the iPad all the time. But we played with toys. Some of us still do. There's a lot of differences between the way we grew up in the 80s and today. That's what we're going to talk about. Now, and I'm not going to sit here and say, my time was better than your time, kids. All right, I kind of am. Yeah, this whole video is going to be an old man yelling at kids to get off his lawn. That's pretty much what it's going to sound like. Now, I'm not saying my time was so much better and kids today are so terrible and I hate them all. I can't. I have 3 kids. I can't hate them that much. I told my son I was going to make this video and this is what he said. He said, oh, please, you're not going to be one of those old dudes screaming at kids to get off their lawn and say, we drank from the hose and we drank from the hose and we're fine. No, here's what I'm going to do instead. I'm just going to tell you this is the way it was in 1982 and this is the way it is in 2024. And I'm going to leave it up to you to decide in the end who had it better, okay? And you can tell me in the comments below who had it better. And I think honestly on some of these, like, you're gonna get the kids of today get a win, and some of these the kids from the 1980s are gonna get a win. Here is how it's different to live in 1984 as it is to live in 2024. We played with toys. Kids today don't play with toys because their parents let them go on their iPad, and the dopamine addiction of being on a screen all day makes a toy seem really sad. That's why when you go to like the toy aisle in a Walmart or a Target, you're gonna see just like 50-year-old men trying to hunt for, you know, the new reboot of He-Man and G.I. Joe, and you can see like 2 weird homeschool kids whose parents won't let them play with an iPad. If you take away the iPad and the phone and the kids will play with toys again, not gonna happen. You guys digitally bully, right? So your bullying is more online, over text message. You know, we couldn't do that. You had to bully somebody, you'd bully them to their face. And everybody got bullied. It was relentless. People were mean. It was horrible. People were really mean. I mean, racial slurs were thrown out. The R word was thrown out all the time. Pretty much everything was a slur. You got called gay. Gay! And you got bullied. It was just a part of life. You got bullied and you had to suck it up. And as a result, you became a little bit jaded, a little tough. And you could handle it when somebody busted your chops, or you didn't make it, honestly. You just had to be tough. And it was sad, and you were afraid to go to school, and everything was... So, I don't know, you put that in. But right now, you guys, like, I feel like kids here today are nicer in person and more awful in secret, and that's why we bullied analog. We had one kind of bread. But you go to the supermarket now, and there's all kinds of bread. And apparently the bread that we had was full of dye, had sugar, and it was fine. And you had one kind of bread, it was called Wonder Bread. That was the only brand that there was. And maybe you got a Wonder Bread He-Man or figure out of it. And you didn't know any better. And it wasn't this wheat bullshit. Wheat bread is bullshit. Our parents didn't give a f***. Okay, as a parent now, I care about everything. I'm terrified that horrible things are going to happen to my kids, and I protect them. Your parents would just let you play in trash and disappear for a day, and then they would go out and like they'd go out drinking all night, and then they would, you know, come home and you'd be there and they'd be like, yeah, right? Like for instance, we used to ride our bikes all around the town all day. We would leave for like days. We would go play in dumpsters. We would throw bottles. We would throw rocks at each other for fun. And, you know, we would leave, we would, you know, for hours and hours, and we'd come back before dinner and no one cared. You kids, you ride your bike, you maybe ride around the block or the parking lot while your parent watches. And, you know, on the flip side, we lost a few, okay? Like there used to be a phenomenon of there would be a missing kid face on your milk box, right? You'd get a box of milk and there'd just be like a missing kid. This kid was lost. We lost a lot of kids back then. So that was the trade-off. Now I care about everything in my child's life, and I really think I'm probably doing irreparable damage by caring. Because our parents were screwed up. They had screwed up parents, screwed them up, and they passed their screwed upness on to us. And, you know, it builds character though. So we have character, right? All these kids who had like kind of parents who were okay, who processed everything through therapy and then had their kids very intentionally. They are up their kids so bad. Is it better now? You know, on one hand, you know, okay, we lost a bunch of kids, so many that they had to put their faces on milk bottles. That ain't good. On the flip side, none of us had a crippling anxiety, and we could get out of bed and do things and function in society, right? So, what's better? We were addicted to way cooler things than iPhones. You kids are addicted to your phone. We weren't addicted to our phones. We didn't have phones. You couldn't really be addicted to TV because it was only on in your house. You couldn't carry it around in your pocket. You had to wait for the TV show to come on in order to watch it. And the majority of the time, it was a bunch of crap on TV that was absolutely unwatchable. TV shut off at like midnight too. You just 1 a.m. I think, something like that. The flag would play, and then it would just be fuzz for like the rest of the night to like 6 a.m. when a boring ass show would come on. So it was basically impossible to get addicted to media. I was about as addicted to media as possible. You kids are addicted to your phones. We weren't addicted to phones. No, we were addicted to stuff like cigarettes and alcohol and things like that. Much cooler things to be addicted to than a cell phone. Not good, they'll kill you, but at least being addicted to cell phones really, really lame. One of the addictions, we all smoked at some point. Everybody smokes at one point in their life for a small part-time. You don't smoke, you vape, okay? Like, and vaping, smoking, equally stupid. You know, smoking's horrible for you. It's gonna give you lung cancers. You know, you're just filling your lung with tar and shit. And we would go in the bathroom, and not me, I didn't do it. I smoked in my 20s, so I didn't smoke when I was in high school. But you guys vape, but vaping is just like the lamest version of smoking. Like you don't even look cool doing it. You look like you're sucking on a robot's dick, basically. You just don't look cool at all. And so we smoked, some of us died because of it, but we looked like Humphrey Bogart when we did it, and so, you know, I think that's a win for us. Okay, I'm gonna put that in the win category for 82. We had new movies. We had actual new movies. No, I mean, like, you don't understand. Like, we had movies that were created for the time, not remakes of movies that were from the 80s. Pretty much every movie that you watch right now is a sequel to something that was made for us. So that's a sad loss for you. Yeah. On the flip side, though, I grew up in the era where video games were birthed, and we had like Pong. Basically, the graphics were 7 pixels, and you had to like blur your eyes and imagine that it looked like something. They were still awesome, but in comparison, I mean, I'm gonna give you that your video games are a little. Where our movies are better, your video games are a little bit better than ours. All you people yelling at me, Pong's amazing. I know, Pong is really fun. Pong's incredible. But compared to Pong to like Elden Ring, it's really a hard comparison to say this is as good as this. Okay, so I think we got to give this to the folks from 2024. We had really bad hair. Yeah, we had bad hair and bad fashion. Everyone's kind of fugly in general, I feel like. We just had terrible hair, terrible fashion choices. We had like MC Hammer pants, and our hair was massive or feathered, or we had mullets, and just everybody in generally looked fugly. Kids today look, you know, better, but they also have incredible complexes because now they have to compare themselves to the Instagram girl or boy that whatever, I don't know how to follow that shit. And now they all have complexes about how they look, or they're trying to pretend that they're making themselves hideous on purpose so that they don't have to deal with that shit. Weird. We didn't do it on purpose. We were fugly because we were fugly. That was not a like intentional thing. It just happened to be that we had bad hair, bad skin, and we're fed on a diet of, you know, basically corn syrup. No one was politically correct. Okay, I think political correctness. I think the term like is coined somewhere in the 90s and the 80s. Absolutely no one was politically correct, and nobody cared. One little memory from like how politically incorrect literally everybody in the world was. Like everybody and everybody's parents had a book called Truly Tasteless Jokes, and Truly Tasteless Jokes, look it up, had chapters on racist jokes, anti-Semitic jokes, gay jokes, dead baby jokes, Helen Keller jokes, and everybody read it and everybody had a copy of it. I had being entire series of 10 volumes of those, and I can recite some of these jokes from memory. I'm not going to, because I would absolutely get canceled. And I'm trying to forget a lot of these jokes, but they're in the back of the brain with weird facts about G.I. Joe, just never to leave. Replacing a lot of important information, apparently. And that's another thing. We had no access to information. You had no information. If you wanted to know something, you actually had to get off your ass and go to the library and use the Dewey Decimal System to go through a card catalog and figure out where the information was and pick it up. And nobody did that shit. Like, only like the biggest nerds did that, unless you hadn't. You showed up at the library like twice a year. It's a terrible day for you. The Dewey Decimal System was ruining your day. And then if you wanted to cheat and like read a book, you actually had to go to the store and buy what's called Cliff's Notes. Cliff's Notes were this like yellow and black little version of a book that was like, okay, I don't want to read the Scarlet Letter. I'm going to read the real short version of the Scarlet Letter in about 45 minutes, and then I'll go take the test. But what helped you better than this version of the Scarlet Letter here with Demi Moore, which I reviewed on my other channel. But that is Cliff Notes. That was your way of getting information. Other than that, you just knew what you knew and what you could remember, which was almost nothing. So you had no information. We had to work to see porn, okay? You kids, it's right over, next tab over, you're going to be able to see some porn, unfortunately, and it's traumatizing as that was. We had to work really hard. You had to go get a VHS tape. You had to sneak into your parent or uncle or whatever drawers to find the porn, which was hidden in a VHS tape somewhere. And they all had people with giant bushes, and they all looked terrible. And but you know what? You made it happen. You made it happen. That's because we had grit back then. We had grit. And so he made it happen, as hard as it was. Your porn is like everywhere, and you can't really avoid it, and that is terrible and probably going to really psychologically damage you in the future. We had to work to get it. There were no seatbelts. Or there were seatbelts, but no one used them. I feel like the first time I used a seatbelt was in like the early 2000s when I finally got a car that would beep so annoyingly that the beeping eventually made me finally put my seatbelt on. Back in the day, we used to ride in the back of station wagons. No one really cared. There was not like safety regulations for anything. You took your chances, and you know, a lot of us didn't make it. Back then, all old people looked absolutely ancient. If you see a 70-year-old now, like, what's his name? RFK Jr. is like 70. A 70-year-old back in the 80s looked like they were on death's door. Like death was knocking, about to take them. They looked a million years old. Everybody, a person my age would have been like barely functioning, fed on a diet of corn syrup and traumatized by a difficult life. They weren't going to make it. Now, whatever, people live to 9,500 and everybody looks good until they're like 90s. So that's some of the differences between life in 1980 and 2024. Let me know what you think. Does it sound better to live in 1984 or 2024? You tell me in the comments below what else was different, what was better, what's worse. Let me know. And if you want some more 80s/90s nostalgia, check out this video on R-rated action figures made for kids.